the DORK podcast with Rich Keefe. It's the DORK podcast with Davey. It's the DORK podcast. Hashtag. It's the hashtag DORK podcast.
Grab his dick and twist it.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Hashtag Dork. My name is Rich Keefe, joined as always by Davey Eyeballs. He is Rick Rude Von Dick, dude. All hail the king of ginger ale. It's Ryan Davey. Davey, how are you?
I'm good now that we got a good start, finally. For the first time in like 3 weeks, we got a good start to this.
Hit the intro at the intro.
Yeah, or the other time where I was like outside in Maine and like couldn't fucking figure it out.
There was that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, the real tricky thing, if anybody out there, if you're recording podcasts and you're using this StreamYard, you're probably better off no Wi-Fi, just using your phone. That seemed to be like the best audio going.
Yeah, that was other than being home. Like this is
that helps. Yeah, the plugged-in audio is so much sweeter. Ryan, not to make you play amateur shrink, but maybe you can help me with something here.
I would love to.
Okay, so we talk about ourselves on the podcast, right?
Sure do.
That's part of the podcast. So I got a couple things going on right now. So one, as you know, I hate to spend money. Hate it with a passion. I've had to fix a few things. As you know, baby number 2, we're very excited about, is coming next month. And just had like plumbing stuff that had to get done, more like leaky faucets and stuff like that, leaky like a shower, whatever. Long story short, spent way more money on it than I wanted to. That's bothering me. Separate issue. I'm probably consuming more alcohol recently than I would like. And yeah, listen, I'm not drinking either.
I got a Cutwater in here.
But so I said, which one?
Mm-hmm. Lime margarita, the 12%er.
Oh, no joke.
Yep.
Anyway, like I've put on some bad weight. Most of it's in the face, neck, and belly. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, so I told myself, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to drink less and I'm going to spend less money, which is saying something for me, right? Like just trying to get back on track, both physically, mentally, and in the bank account.
Mm-hmm.
You know how I celebrated that decision?
How'd you do? What'd you do?
Last night, I went up the street to the Chinese food place near us, bought a Mai Tai while I waited for like $75 worth of Chinese food. What does that say about me?
Here's what it says about you, right? There is a famous line from a singer-songwriter of our era named David Matthews.
Sure.
Who sings, it's actually an Epicurean from Epicurus. It's eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we may die. Look, we're on this giant blue marble once, for a couple turns.
Yes, I'm glad
money's if my wife has taught me anything, she's like, money comes and goes, man. Comes and goes.
More money, more problems.
And there's a great line, and I think it's Ocean's 11. Who's the old guy played by
Carl Reiner?
Carl Reiner. And he says, I want my last check to bounce. Like hey man, like
you can't leave it behind.
Exactly. Mentality. You can, but like fuck them kids, like they get their own lives. Fucking kids.
I mean, again, nobody who needs a handout, but I was just like, I was seriously sitting there and I'm like, all right, the way my head works, I'm like, all right, one day at a time, don't spend as much money as you did the day before, don't drink today, that kind of thing. I'm like, I got a hankering for a Mai Tai. And this place up the street, one Mai Tai, you probably should get a cab home. Like this thing is
it'll give you a wallop.
Anyway. Oh man.
Listen, you work hard, right?
Thank you. Yep.
You work hard, and I know it's for 4 hours a day or something like that, but like, goddamn, like I've seen you work. I've been in the building.
You work 20 hours a week. You deserve a little time off.
Listen, but like all that whole time, like it's not a data entry job where it's 8 hours of just sitting and staring at a screen. Right. Like you got to be on for those 4 hours.
Yeah,
I would say in a regular 9 to 5, you're on for about an hour and a half.
Oh my God. I told you, I don't know if I told it on the podcast, when I had one job a while ago when I was like just very, very part-time at the old station. And so I had to do other stuff. And it was like an office job and I was in a cubicle and I kept like walking over to my boss to ask him like what else I need to do. And he's like, I don't know, man. Like, are you sure you want to? He basically was like, just fucking do nothing is what he was trying to tell me. And I'm like, I wasn't wired for that kind of a job.
I am like, not either, which is why I do what I do.
Yeah, right. You're better suited doing that.
Yep.
It's crazy. But yeah, anyway,
this is a run out the clock situation. Just like
if we move all this way here, we can do a lot more.
Nope.
Men will often use sports analogies while at work.
Just to confuse everybody.
All right. Well, I feel a little bit better. I'm glad I came to the right place on this one.
Yeah.
So
fuck it.
Yeah. One day at a time.
My answer is the too long didn't read. Fuck it. Who cares?
Right. If you tuned in late, Keefe's having issues. Davey says, fuck it.
Yep.
Oh, good advice. Probably sound advice. All right, let's move on.
This week in Dork. Yeah.
So, Ryan, I have a proposition for you. So I said two questions.
Jesus, we're coming in hot tonight, huh?
I know. I've had a lot of time to think.
Okay.
So, House of the Dragon episode 2 just came out last night on HBO. It's a 10 episode season 1. It's already got picked up for a season 2. Clearly, people are very much in on this show. As bad as the Game of Thrones series ended, people are in on the prequels insofar as everyone's watching it. I think, unless we have like a red hot topic, we turn ourselves into a House of the Dragon episode recap podcast.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
The people are hungry for it. We've been getting unsolicited. You need Game of Thrones recaps again. You need to do that. I got people at my wife's work being like, are they talking about House of the Dragon on there yet? I'm like, yep, that's what we got to do. It's so popular. So next week we can sort of do the first 3 episodes as like one thing, and then kind of
bring what's Scrim doing? We're gonna bring Scrim back for this thing.
Get them Thrones boys, see if they ride. I know he goes to bed pretty early now that he has a day shift or morning.
He's big time. He's big time in us now.
But then again, this is pretty big time. House of the Dragon's pretty big time.
And it's like if you're asking Shime to talk about Game of Thrones or whatever, like he's in. So
you know who we could also ask? I don't know if he's willing to do it or has the setup. Courtney Cox's husband does a Game of Thrones recap newsletter.
Stop.
He legit, they had him on the air the other day. He spends 4 to 5 hours and writes a newsletter that's out later in the week before the next episode.
Now, I'm a big listener. What Santos is his name?
Santo.
So yeah, I'm a big. I listen to EEI all day. That's what I do. Get it on in the background. I'm a fan. So
we could get both those. We could get both those silly gooses on if we wanted. Yeah. Maybe.
Why not? Huh.
Anyway, so that's that. But anyway, season. I know episode 1 you were kind of like, yeah, it's fine. What do you think of episode 2? Did you watch it yet?
I haven't watched it yet. I'm gonna watch it right after this.
Very good. I liked it, and I feel great because you know how I told you I read kind of ahead and I thought I had too much spoiler. I thought I was going to spoil like the whole season. I think I really only spoiled like episode 2 and 3. Like, so when going forward, if you hear me guessing about House of the Dragon or predicting, I don't know. Like,
okay, all right. So
by the end of this episode, they sort of showed a teaser for episode 3. I'm like, yep, that's all I know. So,
how good.
We'll be on level footing by next week.
Perfect.
How about the DC extended?
What the fuck? Are you serious?
No, it's nonstop. It's literally nonstop. So they scrapped Batgirl altogether. We gave you the news last week about how they have multiple decisions to make on the Flash, even though apparently that's getting good reviews.
It's getting like better reviews than like the Nolan verse. Like what the hell?
I don't get it. And since our last episode, they moved Shazam! Fury of the Gods from December to next March. And then they moved Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom from next March to next Christmas. This movie was supposed to come out this Christmas.
Right.
It's now coming out Christmas of 2023.
And what did they do? They just did something else too, where I was like, are you shitting me? I forget what it was.
I think Shazam, Aquaman, the Flash is still up in the air.
The Flash is still. They don't even know what they're going to do with that yet. And that movie's supposed to that's supposed to come out like next month.
It's a disaster.
It's a mess. And I forget what it was, but I was like, oh, the kid Dan Lin is supposed to be like the Feige of the DCEU, and he's produced some like shit movies. They think that he's going to like fix this.
Best of luck in your endeavors.
Yeah.
So that's that. I'm still like. Is it weird for me to still be optimistic about Black Adam?
No, I think they're pushing everything in on Black Adam as to that's going to be like the blockbuster they've always wanted. That's going to be like their
Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who is sort of in the DCEU, right? He plays Thomas Wayne in flashbacks and Batman v Superman. He also plays Negan in The Walking Dead. He has been cast in season 4 of The Boys,
which is awesome because he did a turn as the comedian in Zack Snyder's Watchmen and was very good in that R-rated comic book style. So
he's excellent. I'm a big fan of this guy.
He's one of those people that's like, if he's in, him and John Bernthal, I feel like are kind of the same. Where like if they're in something, I'll watch it.
Yeah. Both Walking Dead actors. She-Hulk episode 2. Thought that was pretty good.
It's good. I don't understand the hate. I don't understand it. It's good.
You know what I like with it? And I think they have to do it because if it's going to be a comedy and if it's going to be some fourth wall breaking, you got to go heavy Easter eggs. This show has already been the most Easter eggy show, I feel like, of all the Disney Plus shows.
Oh, and there was one great line. You know the line I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When Bruce was like, I'm not the same I'm not even the same person I was then.
Literally.
Talking about
He goes,
literally.
And then she looks at the camera. She's like, haha.
Yeah.
Talking about something from the Edward Norton Hulk. Pretty good. They've had little mentions of some other characters and future characters. So I like it. It's good.
I did like that. And I love the Shang-Chi tie-in too. And they're like, oh, Emil Blonsky's going to get off.
Love it.
And then they're like, oh, he's been found in this underground fight ring. That was pretty sweet.
There might have been. I guess this is kind of a spoiler. Are we doing spoiler? I feel like this stuff pops up on Twitter. So is it still a spoiler now?
I don't think so.
With this, no, I'm asking you. Like stuff from this episode, people are tweeting about it. So like, does it count as a spoiler? Like, do we save it for the end of the recap? I was just going to mention one of the things that.
No. I mean, they'll probably forget. I mean, what we got, like 8 more weeks or something?
So the thing with the like a Wolverine tip off, if you zoom in when she's sitting on the bed and she's looking at headlines of stuff on the side, there's a couple of links. One of them is a reference to the giant human structure sticking out of the water from Eternals.
Yep.
And then there's another one talking about a man gets into a bar fight with like claws.
That's awesome.
There you go. Maybe they'll okay.
But I don't think he's going to be in. I don't think they're going to reveal Wolverine and She-Hulk. But
you know
pretty
what?
niche.
Just like when they teased Black Panther like in Iron Man 2 or whatever. So
somebody said, it was on Twitter. I retweeted it. It was today, and they were like, if the Disney Plus Daredevil doesn't start with the blip and him like not being able to hear like heartbeats or people anymore, then they've totally screwed up.
Yeah. They definitely
like how he would have experienced that. Like that would have been pretty awesome.
Really cool. I like that. Yeah. Stranger Things season 5. Apparently, the final season is going to be 8 episodes. Then again, they didn't say how long the episodes are, so who knows how much content.
And the last one's going to be like 4 hours long or something.
It's going to be a Snyder cut. Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power had yet another trailer that came out. This series is going to premiere on September 2nd on Amazon Prime. It's going to be 2 episodes out the gate.
It's weird. It's like a Thursday, right?
Is it September?
Friday. It's Friday.
This Friday.
Yep.
And I've lost all track of date. I've just been drinking Mai Tais all the time. Getting my head straight. I'll tell you what. This Friday night, I'm not going to be watching that. I am curious as to what the reviews are going to be and things like that. I feel like we have a lot on our plate right now. I don't know if I have room for Lord of the Rings, believe it or not. We'll see.
I'm not really into this yet.
Kicking down the door to watch this thing.
Nah, come on.
You know?
Come on. Nah.
Speaking of that, Halloween Ends is we already knew it's coming out October 14th, and that there had been some debate about this or uncertainty. It will be released both in theaters and on Peacock at the same time. So
that does not augur well for this movie if it's being streamed. Now, can you buy it on Peacock, or is it just streaming?
I think you just, as long as you subscribe to Peacock, I think. Yeah, it's not like a Peacock Premium or anything. I think it's just, you get it just like the last one. So the first one was theaters only. The second one was theaters and the cock. And this one is also on the cock.
Even Black Phone went to theaters for a hot minute.
Yep. Oh, yeah, for sure. For a while.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this one's probably going to be trash, but we'll have to cover it because it is the finale and it's Dorktober, for God's sakes.
We're going to have to do that one. Yep.
Ryan, did you see this? We had a lot of people send this to us. Did you see there was a wrestler? This appeared to be some sort of like minor league circuit, if you will. He was dressed kind of like Mario, and he was, whilst wrestling, making a pizza pie.
I did, and I saw him get taken down and almost put in like a figure 4, and he's spinning the pizza like on his back.
He's
like,
just fucking flipping the dough. He's just tossing the dough, and like, but also as he's doing, he's like kind of like an old timey wrestler.
But it was also funny because like that was I saw that back to back with a one. It was a guy dressed in a Michael Jackson Thriller jacket with a werewolf mask on, doing Michael Jackson dance moves into like a people's elbow kind of thing.
It's pretty good.
It's real to me, damn it.
We talked last week about the guy that was doing it with his Joey Ryan, I think it was, that does like the dick suplex.
The dick's
grab his dick and twist it!
Oh my god, dude, this is an MMA fight, dude.
You twist that dick!
Twist is good!
twist is it.
Oh my God.
Oh, dick twist.
The old dick twist.
Grab his dick and twist it. Right, we have so much to get to this episode. We shouldn't be wasting any more time. Let's get into this. All right, it's time now for Should I Have Bought This? And it's brought to you by 47 Brand. Go to 47brand.com. Enter the hashtag dork at the checkout. Davey's wearing a hat right now.
Sure am.
25% off your entire order. That's hashtag dork at checkout. And you need to send us things that you bought, and we will tell you if you should have bought them or not. dorkpodcast@gmail.com is where you can send it. Picture, brief description, and of course a $25 minimum. Let's go to the YouTube. And again, if you're streaming this on YouTube, we always have a photo of it as well. And if you're just listening, that's why Davey's here, because he's going to describe to you what you see right here. Davey, what do you see right here? This one comes in from Thomas. So what do you see?
So Thomas sends us what looks like a championship belt. Now, like a wrestling style belt with the strap and the fake gold and all of those things. But instead of your WWE John Cena spinner thing, we have Red Sox logo. So he has a Red Sox wrestling belt, which I don't know why you would parade that around lately.
It's been a tough go.
It has been a tough go for your Boston Red Sox. They are not good.
The local 9 are struggling. But right, here's the story. You're right. You've described that very well. If that was a criminal, somebody would pick it up in 10 minutes. Long-time listener, first-time emailer. So story behind this. A few weeks ago, WWE SmackDown was in Boston. My brother saw this and lit up. Him not having the means to purchase it came up with a deal with me. I purchased it on my credit card and gobbled up the points as he pays me back in multiple increments. So this is sort of a little bit of a nuanced should I have bought this.
That is a nuanced should. See, he technically bought it, right?
He bought
his brother.
He bought it, but his brother's paying him back. So I guess it's like, should we have bought this? Is what this
now,
is.
Yes, should we have bought this? And also, one of the things that with these belts particularly that you miss is one of the things that determines whether or not I should buy something like this is the weight.
Here we go. I'm glad you asked. I will continue with the email. It is a solid 25 pounds. Definitely made with some serious metals, not the cheaper plastic types they make the other replica belts was. It was blank amount. Buying this for him also netted me a sweet hat. They threw him in a Boston 316 hat. So they just kind of tossed that in, I guess, the vendor. He goes, it's also important to note it does fit my 34-inch waist. Brag there on the waist size.
Skinny guy. All right, tiny.
Okay, slim. Yeah. So should I have bought this? So obviously the most important piece on this is going to be how much was it? Ryan, do you have a guess onto how much this Boston Red Sox WWE Heavyweight Championship belt costs?
If it weighs, I'm going to go $10 a pound. And since he mentioned credit card points, you need to spend a certain amount of money to have significant points. So I'm going to say $250 for this thing.
No. Higher.
Shut up. Shut the fuck up. How much was this thing?
No.
It was more than two. Do you want to take one more guess?
$400.
It was more than that.
Shut the fuck up. No way. No way. How much was it?
$600.
Get the fuck out. Play the thing.
Get the fuck out of here.
Sorry, man. It's a no for me too, dog.
Now, do you get to hang on to it as your brother? Like, is it like layaway, or did you give it to your brother and then?
Oh,
this is
or maybe
this is a Judge Judy case waiting to happen. By the way,
that's a ton of money, man.
This is a small claims court. Your brother's going to say you never had anything in writing, that you bought it for him as a gift, that you never have to pay him back.
So
this is a hard pass.
Not to rub dirt in the wound, but unanimously no in the chat. Across the board.
Actually, someone said F that in the A. Not like
no.
I'm not censoring myself. That's exactly what Josh said.
Kind.
F me in the A. F that in the A. Yeah.
3 words for this guy, Andrew says. Fuck off.
If again, so someone brings up a good point.
Fellow listener. Yeah.
2004 to 2007, maybe. I'd still
good
say
point.
no.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, Matthew wants to know what the interest rate is. That's a good
seriously.
point.
What's the APR on that thing?
David says, get it off the screen. Get it off the screen. Get it off the screen. Hey, that's how you play right there. Folks love the game. It's a fun game. We're not hurting anybody's feelings. You shouldn't have bought that. That's a
Well, the thing that Thomas, who is it? Who's Josh? Thomas? Who said Thomas?
Thomas.
The good thing about this is he brought it to us, but at the end of the day has no ownership of it. He's like, hey, I didn't fucking. He's like, I bought it, but
and you got a fucking hat. You get a free hat.
Did get a hat. So I would have just spent $25 for the Boston 316 hat, but not fucking $600 for that.
His brother's the one that's on the hook for it. As long as you know your brother's good for it, unless he's one of these guys like, yeah, I'll get you. And he keeps putting it off. The next thing you're out $600.
I'm gonna mix family and money. You're gonna do that? Yep. Seen way too many Judge Judy episodes, my guy.
Christopher should have bought a sandwich, skinny.
Should have bought a Mai Tai and $75 worth of Chinese food.
I am no longer a 34 waist after last night. That's for sure. No. Actually, I don't think I am anyway. That's the other thing. I weighed myself not too long ago.
Sure.
That was a mistake. Probably I could lose a good 12. Probably.
Yeah. I am at that point, and not to like give you my measurements because that's creepy, but like I'm a tweener size. So like it depends on the size, it depends on the make of the pants. Like fine, fuck it. I'm like in some pants I'm a 36, some I'm a 38. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. Well, no, it's the same thing like with shirts and stuff. Like I'm in between extra large and large. So like I wear some extra larges and everyone's like, oh, that shit's baggy on you. And then I'll buy a large and like, hey, medium. I'm like, what's a fucking large? Like, what do you want from me? I'm in between sizes.
Is snakes out there this big?
Sure is. Ryan, guess what? I have a quick email of the episode as well. This comes in from Scott. This was, by the way, all one paragraph.
Yes.
And I'll just read it. Anyway,
like minimal punctuation and capitalization too, by the way. I've seen this email.
Yes. This is how it starts. Anyways, I've listened to everything you have podcasted. Monday night is my only scheduled TV show. I'm a bit high.
Have podcasted.
From Buffalo now, in Alaska, almost a year. Oh, Quad is a very attractive lady. And finally got to email you. Tell Davey, spelled wrong. This is to him too, but I'm not retyping this. Anyways, I was at Woodstock 99, and I just recently found out it was a military base. I remember Sunday morning waking up under some table holding a brand new can of Glade air freshener, either pine or clean linen, and walking around made it smell nice. It smelled like pale shit, must, weed, and unkept body parts, warmed and walked in.
Is it must? It's supposed to be musk, and you wrote must.
You wrote must. I'm reading it. That's it is. Caught a trampoline from the Allman Brothers. Feel like I know yous. Thanks. Oh, I meant to send this 3 weeks ago, but was sending it to Keefe, spelled Keef, at DORK Podcast.
No.com.
No, just end of email. So again,
I would like to respond to Scott and ask you formally, what?
Yeah. Thanks, man.
That is just a nice train of thought.
Even if it takes more than a minute.
I did tell Quad, by the way, she got a compliment from one of our listeners, but I didn't explain the rest of the email.
One of the things that I think is happening here too. I don't know if Scott ever left Woodstock 99. I think he's still there, walking around huffing a can of Glade. Why do you have Glade? It's not to freshen the air, Scott. We know what you're doing with that.
No, just pounding the Glade,
just huffing it. Yeah. So we have a jam. I'm going to keep this short because Video Game Minute. We picked the worst week to go long because Gamescom was this week or last week. So we get a bunch of trailers and stuff. I'm just going to hit some highlights. But one of the things that never ceases to impress me. Why do people keep buying Madden video games?
I think just to play in leagues with their friends. Even NFL players are now bitching about Madden, like on social media. Goo was having a hell of a time just even signing on to the goddamn thing. Oh yeah, they've had issues. Yeah,
they've had issues with. I mean,
everything.
Josh, was that a letter from Charlie Kelly? Dennis is asshole. Why Charlie hate? because Dennis is a bastard man. But this could be the worst exclusive deal in all of video game history. I can't think of a single video game that over the course of 20 years has gotten progressively worse. Like, and they haven't fixed it. And I don't think they have any intention on fixing it. But like, they were like, basically they just tried out the same thing. They just slap a fresh coat of paint on some bullshit, right? So like, why don't you fix the bugs? I don't get this. I don't get why this is such an issue.
It's like one tweak and they're like, oh, look, the rookie class. You're like, well, yeah.
Just bring back the goddamn mini camp that everyone loved. Like, I would play the mini camp for hours.
Mini camp was cool.
Yeah. All right. So Gamescom happened this week, and I'm just going to hit on the trailers that I liked.
Okay.
Because there were so many. So we finally got eight years after the original, we got a Dead Island 2 cinematic trailer. It's called Dead Island, but it looks like it takes place in like LA.
Okay.
Doesn't make any sense.
No.
They call it Dead Island. Doesn't take place on an island. Whatever. The trailer was really cool. Again, we've been burned with cinematic trailers before, and Dead Island was a great idea that didn't really, the engine didn't really turn over on that. So they get a lot to prove here, but I'm excited how this looks. We got some new Gotham Knights footage. We got some Harley Quinn and some Clayface in there as well. It looks like Montoya is now running GCPD.
I think they're
with Jim Gordon being dead.
To be honest, like they know that you say Gotham and you put a bunch of these characters in, people are going to buy the game, people are going to play the game. It doesn't look very good, I don't think.
I'm still cautiously optimistic about it. And one of the things that, why do they have to make Red Hood so big? Like, why is he like tanky?
Yeah,
I don't get that.
I don't like that either.
I don't like that. I like him a little bit more nimble. We did see, speaking of nimble, we did see some gameplay from Hogwarts Legacy, the new Harry Potter. Well, it's not takes place before that, but like, the new this looks fine. If this is your thing, I think it's a little not my thing. But God love you if you're excited about this. Callisto Protocol, which is like the Dead Space successor, looks fucking awesome and gory, and I'm excited for that game. PS5 is now going to have like a pro controller called the DualSense Edge.
Ooh,
which has back buttons and you can customize the thumbsticks and all that stuff. So that's probably going to cost like $500.
Right.
We saw some new fighting from Street Fighter 6. Finally, some gameplay. There's a new mechanic where they actually, instead of doing like the classic like quarter circle punch to do now it's more like Smash Brothers. So you can do simplified mechanics.
Right.
So I'm guessing this is going to be a hot button issue for the fighting game community, but I'm really excited to play this. It might be my next like deep dive.
Oh, nice.
I just play this game forever.
Very good.
There's this game. Okay. This is the second most batshit thing I've seen. There's a game coming out called Lies of P.
Okay.
Which is a steampunk kind of TikTok man version of Pinocchio, but looks like a Elden Ring, Dead Souls kind of game.
All right.
Super weird. And like Pinocchio looks like Timothy Chalamet, but he has like Mega Man, like gun arms, but like all like steampunky.
Okay.
It looks really bizarre, but kind of cool.
Yeah, maybe worth a shot.
Yeah. And then there's a Dune MMO coming out. There's a new Dark Pictures game called The Devil in Me. So the Dark Pictures that are like the choose your own adventure games. So there's this group of it's 5 people. You can play as any 5 of them. And they are trying to make a documentary in H.H. Holmes' murder mansion.
Oh.
So it's supposed to be super gory. What?
I think H.H. Holmes is from New Hampshire.
I thought but it's the place is in like Chicago or something, right?
In Chicago, but he's
from New Hampshire.
He's America's first serial killer.
Yep. And the most batshit thing I've ever seen in my life is the new Squanch Games High on Life. Did you just see the trailer for this?
Is this the one where it's like a little knife or whatever?
Knifey?
Yeah.
Talks about like eating ass.
Yeah.
And so it's Justin Roiland and Squanch Games made this.
Yeah.
And it's a first-person shooter, and your guns talk to you as you're playing. And it's just, I watched like a boss fight and watched when you actually meet Knifey. Yeah. And it's just chaos and just like the funniest shit.
It's great.
Like, Knifey's, for whatever reason, has an Australian accent. But
Why not?
whatever. But he's just like, I'm gonna cut these assholes up, and I'm gonna cut their assholes out, and I'm gonna eat their assholes. I'm like, I'm kind of in on this.
Yeah,
Like this looks bonkers,
bet
and
it's
it actually looks really good.
The game looks cool. Oh yeah. It looks good.
It looks good, but it's very Justin Roiland. By the way, I still don't understand. I know Rick and Morty's coming out next week too.
Yeah.
Justin Roiland, I feel like does everything, but like everything hinges on like Dan Harmon for some reason.
Yeah, he's like, what are they, like a
Like
team?
Yeah, they are, but like he's the one holding everything up. From my understanding,
that deal where they like signed on for like 1,000 more episodes or something.
right? But like Dan Harmon is like being a dick about it. Like I don't know, whatever. But that's Davey's Video Game Minute. You can see. I'll try to put as many of these trailers as I can up, but they're all good. So check those out.
Oh, by the way, Davey just did an AMA on our subreddit. So if anybody's interested on that,
be my pick of the pod.
Fuck. I'll cut that out. Don't worry.
Cut it out.
Yeah. People hear it coming up pretty soon. Don't worry. So don't worry about that. Forget I just said that.
Yeah.
Actually, you didn't even hear it because
you didn't hear it.
Removed from the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Question for you.
Y'all ready for biz?
Topic is your time.
What's that?
Well, I'm glad you asked. It's the topic of the day. And today it is The Sandman, the Netflix series that ran 10 episodes and then they tagged on an 11th episode about a week or so later. It, of course, is inspired by the Neil Gaiman comic book, graphic novel, whatever you want to call it. I have one of the volumes here behind me on my shelf. We begin as we always do, spoiler free with our TV and movie reviews. Ryan, did you like it?
Oh, yes.
Very much so.
Very much so.
Oh my God. I loved it. I loved it. I wasn't really sure what to
expect. Loved it. Wow, that was a pretty good impression of myself I just did.
Oh my God. That sounded like I hit the button here.
It did.
This is so ready. This is the board. This is what Davey did before.
I loved it.
And now you do the impression.
I loved it.
I mean,
it's my own voice. I mean, that's easy, but like
maybe you were doing a voice the whole episode. Is that possible?
I don't think so.
Where's the other one I have?
Still bad. It has to do with the connection. It has to be the connection because my shit's fine.
All right. Anyway, we've seen such a wide range of comic book adaptations, and I don't even mean like WandaVision or Moon Knight or some of those where they take so many stories. I'm talking about like sort of one real run. Right, like The Boys or Preacher, which Seth Rogen both did. Those are both like, I think, really, really good. Then like Paper Girls was fine. Why the Last Man? I stopped watching.
Jupiter's Legacy was shit.
Was a pile of shit, and that's written by one of the best writers in comics. So it's like when they're like, "Hey, we're making The Sandman," you're like, oh, "Boy, like this could go a number of different ways." How much of the comic have you read?
A good amount. Some of these things that like how this is set up is absolutely perfect. And I was going to get into this a little bit later, but like basically what you have is call it 10 episodes, right? The 11th one is kind of like a tack on, but like
we'll get to that. But
call it like 10 episodes. And like the first 4 are like its own thing. Then there's 5. No, the first 5 are like its own thing. And then 6 is like a standalone thing. And then the last 4 episodes are its own. So it's kind of like trades. Like they do it
so good.
Like the way that a comic book would run.
Yeah. No,
was clearly brilliant.
And clearly Neil Gaiman's like a big part of this.
Yes.
And that's the other thing I've sort of heard just from other interviews and things I've read is that say whatever you want about like DC properties, but they seem to work with the creators a lot more.
Yeah.
Whereas like Marvel will be like, here's $5,000. It's like, wait a minute, you're about to make $100 billion off of this thing. And they're like, yeah, whatever. We'll take your story, but you don't own the character. So, pound sand.
Yeah.
Where this is a little bit different. And so clearly Neil Gaiman's all about it. It's like,
and he was the voice of the crow, the skeleton crow in the animated.
Yeah.
That was Neil Gaiman, yeah.
Cat or whatever, right? That one. And he's like tweeting up a storm about it because the other thing about this is it hasn't been renewed for a season 2 yet, which is outrageous because they're picking up shows, getting 2, 3, 4 seasons that I don't know who watches. And if you do watch it, they're not very good. This was great. And to Davey's point, they've only covered so much of the comic so far. I think nothing goes past like the first 3 trades, maybe, because there's 75 issues of Neil Gaiman's Sandman. So if you picked up like a $3 copy of one book, there's 75 of those. So I think now, because of the show, they've put it out in like 4 books, but they're like 500.
They're big. They're not.
Yeah, but so they haven't even scratched, let's call it issue 20 yet, and that's what we've seen so far on the show. So there's a lot more to go. But I haven't read all of it. I've read like half of it, and it's one of those things where I don't really know why I stopped. There's a handful of books like that. I've mentioned it before, like 100 Bullets, Fables. I just didn't finish it because there's so much of it, and whatever, you get lost in it. But everything I've read has been great, and I think they nailed the adaptation of it. What's some of your other Neil Gaiman favorites though, besides Sandman? I know you've read some other Neil Gaiman stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm just from the books. Like, so I've read more novels than I have anything else.
Right,
American Gods.
Yeah.
American Gods is by far my favorite. There's a spin-off of that called Anansi Boys. So Anansi is this West African spider god who's like a trickster god, and it's like his 2 sons like go on like this little adventure. The Graveyard Book, Coraline, his book on Norse mythology. Like, I've read all of these books, and they're all fucking phenomenal. Like, one of my favorite writers, and I haven't read Stardust, but people tell me that's really good. Can't read everything, Rich.
You can't.
But American Gods, I would say, is probably one of my favorite books.
Yeah, American Gods was good, and
a decent, and again, halfway decent show that, like, I don't think Stars has the viewership that Netflix does, but
right.
I think that did 3 seasons, and they were all pretty decent.
Yeah, I think you're right. He also did Marvel 1602, which we've talked about before on the podcast.
So, and I was thinking about that too. If he could get on board, I mean, if you're a Marvel actor, like, you'd jump in on that, right? Like, you'd be in on that.
100%. And then now too, like, even though we didn't love it, the idea that, like, of them doing What If kind of opens the door up to people's minds that are like, oh, I'd watch this. And I bet you could get Benedict Cumberbatch to.
Oh my God, he'd be psyched. He could talk in his real voice.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and so could Tom. And so could Tom Holland.
Yeah. So anyway, he's really an impressive guy, and again, he's been going to work all week on Twitter, kind of talking about it. People are commenting on it because some people don't like the casting choices of some of the characters in this, but that's a whole nother thing. The story, I love the story, and like Davey already laid it up pretty well. Like, it's not just one story. Like, there is kind of one main character, obviously, the Sandman, but then there's like 3 or 4 real like pull kind of stories out of it.
Yeah, arcs.
Arcs. Yeah, perfect way of putting it. What did you think of the acting in the show?
It was fine. It wasn't distracting. There was one thing that was kind of distracting, and that was Morpheus, the Dream's voice, which has become something of a joke in our household right now. And I get what the actor was trying to do, and I forget the actor's name, slipping right out of
Sturridge. His name is Tom Sturridge.
Yeah, he kind of talks like this. And I get it that he's Sleep. He's Dream. He's supposed to sound like that, but he kind of went a little too hard on it.
So I understand what you're saying. I thought it was pretty good. And again, if you read it, like, the book, his like font and everything is like different. You know what I mean? And like, so when you read it, everybody in their mind has a way of how his voice is. And I assume Neil Gaiman sort of instructed him maybe on how he thought it might be.
And I love that he's this all-powerful, what do they call him? The Endless.
Yeah.
And he never raises his voice.
Awesome.
And it's just like, he has that same sleepy tone throughout the whole thing. Even when he's angry, even when he's sad, like, it's the same tone.
He's so powerful though. But you're right. He's one of 7 Endless, which is death, delirium, desire, despair, destiny, destruction, and dream. So this whole story is about Dream, and then there's a couple of those other ones that you see a good amount of, and then there's a couple that you really don't see, and a couple that
hopefully, if it gets picked up, you'll see more of one in particular, who I thought was fantastic.
There's so much more story to be told, and that's why this would be a crime if they didn't have more seasons of this.
Right.
This would be like, but it's different, but like when they stopped making Mindhunter, I was so mad because the show was so good and like they could have kept going. But this is even worse because like it's already written. Like you already have
Right.
all the stuff. You know how good it's going to be. This was something that I picked up on. Neil Gaiman's been doing different interviews and stuff. Did you know a long time ago? Because the Sandman, he wrote this back in it was like 89 to 96.
Yeah.
Was the run. Michael Jackson at one point wanted to play Morpheus in a adaptation.
He would have been incredible.
He kind of looks like him in the
And
comic
think of
book.
it, if you made it then too. So if you made it in like the early 90s, right? Because if you've read the books, I've read enough of the books to know that like, much like in The Boys, Huey's supposed to look like Simon Pegg.
Yeah, they drew
Lucifer is David Bowie. So you could have brought David Bowie in to play Lucifer, which would have been fucking amazing, right on the heels of Labyrinth.
Yeah, it would have.
Yeah, like that would have been sick.
Speaking of that, what did you think of the casting that they did land on for this one? And so you mentioned Lucifer, that goes to Brienne of Tarth and Captain Phasma fame.
Gwendolyn Christie. Yeah, I mean she's great. And I think that there's a fight scene between the two of them, which was, I didn't know how they were going to do that, but they did it very, very well.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the cast was good. Like I don't know if I have a beef with any of them. I didn't love Corinthian. Like I thought maybe that could have been somebody a little bit better, perhaps. But
that's what I love about that is that's the fucking dude from Logan, right?
Yeah. He played what the fuck's his name?
He's the bad guy in Logan.
Yeah. What the fuck's his name?
He's one of the
Donald Pierce.
Yep.
Donald Pierce is his name.
I liked Lucian in the book is like a nebbish, like he looks like it's a man and he looks like a librarian. So I like the kind of updating there.
Better in this one for sure.
Better in this one. Mark Hamill as the voice of
Scarecrow. Got a couple of good voices in there. Yeah, he's Pumpkinhead. I like that one.
And I loved Patton Oswalt. Brought like a little bit of comedy and a little bit of levity to it, which was pretty good.
Yeah, he was Matthew the Raven. So yeah, there were some good ones in there. I liked it. And then David Thewle as John D. That guy is
he's the best creep.
Yeah.
He is the best creep. I love, and like everyone hated it because it was so off-putting, but I loved him in that season of Fargo.
He was creepy as hell.
So good in that.
Holy smokes. Yeah, he was really good. But yeah, overall, I thought pretty good casting. Obviously a must watch. As of this point, end of August, is this a top 6 show?
Yes.
I think so too. I would have this as a dorky nominee as of right now. Again, there's a few more shows. We'll see how House of the Dragon and She-Hulk and Andor and some of these other ones finish up. But this
so what are your 6 right now? Your 6 top shows right now. It's got to be Saul, Stranger Things, this, The Bear,
Barry,
The Boys.
What about Severance?
See, that's in the Severance, and then like Blackbird. Like you have all these shows. Like I haven't even watched Blackbird yet, but
in Euphoria.
Fuck.
By the way, Sydney Sweeney canceled apparently.
She didn't even do anything wrong.
She didn't. And by the way, people were like saying like, "Oh, they're wearing like MAGA hats."
Yeah, but it's her family, and my family's all dickheads. It doesn't make me a bad guy.
Yeah, but the hat wasn't even a MAGA hat. It was "Make 60 Great Again."
Yeah, but it was red and it had words on it, so you know what that means.
But maybe it's kind of a joke. Maybe who knows? Maybe they're the whatever. Maybe they're not. Yeah. But what does it matter?
Who cares? Who cares?
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. But Dork score
5.5.
Yeah, I was going back and forth on it, but back and forth on it. I was going back between 5.5 and 6. I'm gonna give it a 6.
All right, because I liked it. I didn't like it as much as Saul though. That's the only reason.
6s, and that's sort of the beauty of this scale. Is this scale only goes through 6. So like I think every show that's gonna get nominated, I'm probably gonna go right around a 6.
Yeah,
I think I had the Stranger Things as a 6. I think I had the Bear maybe 5.5, but give or take, I'm gonna go 6. And I'll mention like when the 11th episode, so I already had it as a 6, and then the 11th episode came out. It's 2 parts. The first part I kind of was like, this isn't great, and then the second part was fucking awesome. So
the first part was a cool idea.
Yeah, but I didn't really need it. Yeah. It wasn't really necessary. Anything else non-spoiler on? And then again, if you're in the chat, feel free to light us up with your scores. of 1 through 6 on the Sandman. Anything else?
No, let's get to it.
All right, let's do it.
Spoilers! 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 Here come the spoilers!
All right, like Davey said, there's a bunch of different arcs in this that really kind of stood out. And it was funny. I talked about this last week, how I had read the comics so long ago, and everything that was in this I've read. And I was like, if you asked me 2 weeks ago, like, hey, what was in the comic? I would have been like, well, it was, I would have like hemmed and hawed.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they put it out there, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember him getting kidnapped. Oh yeah, I remember the serial killer convention. Oh yeah, I remember that. Like, I remember all the different things that happened. So episode 1 is called Sleep of the Just. And this tells you the story of Dream getting captured by Roderick Burgess and then being held captive. And then what sort of the butterfly effect is of having the King of Dreams isolated and not being able to go into the dream world for like a century. Fucking great start, great story.
And it's the stealing of his items as well, and him having to get those back.
Yes.
And what I loved is, and I before I forget, I just want to mention, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but before I forget, so like they do this run of him getting his shit back, and then the second half is like the dream vortex. But the episode in the middle, would you call them? So the one with Dream and Death and Hob might be the best episode of the season. It's so good.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, and that's definitely one of the arcs, and that's another one that I remembered reading. So episode 6 is called The Sound of Her Wings, and Dream finally has all of his things that we talked about. We can go back to that too, of him like tracking it down, and he hangs out with Death for a day. And by the way, this is what I was talking about, like people on Twitter, as you can imagine, and again, Twitter's whatever you want to take it and make it to be, but they're like, Death's not a black woman. It's like, oh, what's Death? Who? Have you seen Death? What's Death?
Yeah, what's Death?
I fucking hate that shit. That's a bad casting. I thought she was great, but anyway.
And like I never thought I would watch an episode that would involve watching Death work and being like, I like that character. Like there was something about that actress and the way she portrayed it that was like, this is going to sound very poetic, but just like beautiful, like how that was done.
Kirby Howell Baptiste, who was in Killing Eve, which is where I think I saw her. But she was so good in this, and it's just she's having a conversation, and she's actually kind of like helping Dream out. You know what I mean? Like he's talking to her, and she's like talking to him, but she's like also doing her job. She's just going from place to place, person to person, and that part I like. The part I love is the story about Hob Gadling.
Yeah.
Who the two of them stumble upon. This is like forever, like Middle Ages. They're in a bar, and he's talking about how he wants to live forever, and he's going to live forever. He's like, somebody has to, and like, why not? Like, why can't I live forever? And so there's that,
and Death and Dream are there with him, and they're like, all right, let's see. And it was the every 100 years I'll come see you.
Yeah,
in this place.
Yep.
And you got to see Dream as like the Gaiman, like 80s, 90s, like Cure. You look like Robert Smith from The Cure.
Yeah,
like that was pretty sweet.
It was. I love that whole idea too, and because Death was just sort of like, oh, whatever, like let him be, or then like, Dream's like, no, he's like, this guy doesn't really want this, like he'd be miserable, and so they gives him the power, and the guy's like, yeah, fine, and then every 100 years he would show up, and there were times where he was like the richest guy in the neighborhood, and then there were times where he was a mess, and Dream's like, so like you regret this? He's like, what? Like, no. Like, this is the greatest thing in the world. Like, no, of course not. And Dream couldn't believe it. And then when Hob hits him with the like, I think you need a friend. It's like basically what he tells him is like, the reason why you did this is like you need somebody to like to hang out with and like somebody to talk to. And then Dream gets all butthurt on it and whatever.
Yeah.
And then I like how it then goes back to, and there's so many different stories that then tie back into when Dream was kidnapped for so long. Then you go back all the way to episode 1 where Dream's out of the picture, and this guy goes to the bar and he thinks that Dream's like mad at him, and he's like, he's not there. He's like, all right, whatever. Then that bar gets torn down. It goes across the street, and he goes there in another 100 years, and Dream's finally out and shows up, and he's like, fucking basically like, you were right. And now those guys are buddies. But I love that story.
It's such a cool story, and like such a twist on, Because my initial reaction is like, if I'm going to live forever, I'm going to be miserable because everyone I know is going to die, and like
Yes.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm going to have to. And he finds ways to like, and this is pre-internet, so like he's like, oh, this is like the fourth time around I'm my own son or something.
Yeah.
Like he goes away and then he comes back as his son or something like that. So
Yeah, 'cause you can't obviously be in the same place the whole time, or they're gonna think you're a witch or whatever. They're gonna burn you to death, and so like
right.
that is always one of those things. Like for people who live forever, like how do they kind of get out of that?
And it was cool to bring in Joanna Constantine again to play like an ancestor of hers.
Awesome.
By the way, sneaky good character. So awesome character there too. That we'll jump back. So let's going back to Dream getting his shit.
Going back, so not only does he get kidnapped, but then all of his stuff, and he basically has like 3 things that he really, really needs. He's got a pouch of Sandman.
Yep.
Man. He has his helm, which is a fucking sick mask. It's scary and good, and a ruby. So these are all his things, and they're all disappeared. Also, he goes back and talks. He goes back to the land of the dreaming, and he talks with Cain and Abel. Which is pretty sweet.
And Goldie, the cutest goddamn thing. The baby gargoyle is the cutest goddamn thing I've ever seen.
And then he had to give him another one.
Yep.
Right? Was one of them Gold? No, the first one was Gregory, I think, right?
Gregory, and then that one was Goldie. Yeah.
He had to kill Gregory just to get his powers back, and then he gave him Goldie. But Cain's just always killing Abel, and then Abel comes back. Pretty good. But then he summons the Fates during that whole thing, and you get all that. But he needs the sand, and he goes after Joanna Constantine, and he even makes a reference where we don't know if like in this, like is John Constantine, are we ever going to get a John Constantine? Is it going to be earlier or later? Because he mentions how I've dealt with you for like generations. I've like come across
Constantines. Yeah.
Constantines. Right. But that was pretty good. You also, so go back to the first people who kidnap him, and then you get the character of Ethel, who was in there, was with the fucking Roderick Burgess, then scoots out of there with all the stuff. And so then you jump ahead, and now she still looks young. So you're like, all right, some magic is afoot. Something
is amiss here. Yeah.
And she goes to Buffalo, the great city of Buffalo, to meet her son.
As
John,
one does.
One does. And there's John. There's fucking David Thewlis. And they meet them. Fucking weird experience there. Because she also has like, what is it, like an amulet or whatever?
Protection. So so she can't, whatever you do to her, it's done to you.
Yeah. Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And then like David Thewlis like breaks out of there. And it's crazy. Like she takes that off and immediately ages like 100 years and dies.
Yeah.
And then, but now he's super powerful. Now he has his thing. He's been locked up for a while. And he's out of there. But then episode 4 is the one where Dream goes to hell. And I'm fascinated by all that. Like anytime there's like a book, whether it's, Dante's Inferno or whatever, like you're going to hell. I'm interested. I want to know what's going on. I don't want to know what their interpretation is of it, but he goes to hell. And you had referenced this before, but the fight Dream has with Lucifer.
Yeah. And it's so the fight happens because they start off, they're like, I'm this, and it's like it's almost like a game where they're like so they say like I'm a wolf, and they go through the whole description, and then he said, well, I'm a hunter, and blah blah blah, and they go, I'm a universe, and and it's just like they kind of telegraphed. I think I read that comic too, so I knew what was coming, and how he's like, well, I'm hope, and what beats hope, so
yeah,
and that's how that ends. It
was pretty great though, because I thought the devil or Lucifer and like Dream, like as powerful, they're not going to fist fight. Like that would have been stupid, right? Like that's not what they do. So they do this crazy epic battle.
And I love that. And that's what, like when we talk about like Thanos, like if you had like all that power, Thanos' name means death, but if you have all that power, like why are you punching? You don't have to do that. You know what I mean? Like, and to them, it's just like this elevated level of fighting where it's almost like wits.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really cool and a cool depiction of hell. And I love the trek that like, that's Matthew's like first assignment too. So he's like, what the fuck is going on right now? So I thought that was pretty sweet.
Another Raven didn't make it. And then, Matthew's down there. That was pretty good. Oh, so episode 5 is the diner episode. It's called 24/7, but it's the diner episode where John is in there with his ruby and you see how it messes up people. And this was the episode. This was the one where like 10-15 minutes in, I was like, you know what? Maybe the show, maybe it's not great. Like it's good. And then all of a sudden, like when you really figure out what the hell is going on, and then you're just like so fascinated by 95% of those characters in there you had just met for the first time. and just them telling their story and then kind of like doing it again and then like doing it again and like trying to figure out like what the mind fuck is there. That
And
was a
how
wild
about
episode.
the tie-in too, where the girl who's like broke up with her girlfriend,
Mhm.
her girlfriend is the girl who's the dream vortex,
Oh, Rose Walker.
Rose,
They're fucking
right?
the connect. Is it?
I think so.
The connections are off the charts. I
Because you see her again. Like,
Okay.
I think, yeah.
I don't even remember that, so I'll give you that one.
That's what I mean. Like, it's one of those things, like all those things are like woven in
Oh,
so
they
well.
for sure are. Like they're constantly referenced before, and like even like Rose's great grandmother Unity Kincaid
Is the one of the ones who didn't wake up.
right from when he
Yeah.
was captured,
Right.
like forever ago, and then like like this,
And how like the vortex was supposed to be her.
yeah, they even they
But-
showed her in like was it episode 1 when they did like a quick thing and they're like, here's the effects of like Dream not being there. And, like some people just kept sleeping and some people whatever. They cut to her and they showed her and then like you don't really get the payoff for like 8 episodes later.
Right. And then you don't get it until like the last 30 seconds of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Where like Desire was behind the whole thing the whole time.
Yeah. Good take by Brad in the chat. The explanation that pure honesty or humanity would destroy itself basically without dreams. And I think also just like the idea that people create like just how powerful dreams can be is
Right.
kind of like when you're thinking of like Greek gods or Roman gods, for example, and like all
Well, maybe the Romans or Greeks. They had to do it for you.
yeah, thinking of all the
Or even the Romans or Greeks.
but if you're like oh like you're the god of like the underworld, you're the god of the sea, you're the god of like you wouldn't necessarily put dreams very high, but if you really start to think about it, like that is a wild thing to be in charge of.
Yeah, and just sleep in general, like sleeping and dreaming in general, you know, and what you can do. It's and again, I go to that episode 11 with the writer and like how, you know, they're asking him questions about how you do that. And I'm thinking of like how Neil Gaiman did this, like how deep you had to go into this stuff and how many different types of mythologies and shit you had to pull from in order to do this kind of thing.
Well, and he's the guy that you know has it all kind of figured out. You know, like you feel like you're in pretty good hands. Oh, because also one of the other guys too in the every 100 year, the Hob Gadling episode, one of the ones that he first talks to is William Shakespeare. Right.
Yes.
He gives him like, and he's a guy who's like seems to be kind of like a fuck up or whatever. And then he like goes and talks to him and like gets
who may or may not have stolen his shit from the other guy.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So.
So then you also, and you mentioned Rose Walker in there. So that becomes another major story, like her being the vortex, her searching for her brother, everybody that she kind of gets caught up with, and sort of where they end up going, which is this serial killer convention.
Which is fucking amazing.
Which is
amazing.
Just bananas. They all have their names, they all have catchphrases, but they go there and they like meet at like a Holiday Inn Express, and they're all just like hanging out. They all have name tags, talking, and they were just like, I forget the fucking name of the guy they were trying to get, but they couldn't get him. So and then they got the Corinthian to be the keynote speaker, which is like this huge deal for it. But there's all kinds of shit going down. But also all the while you're having like the effects of these different dreams and the effects of Rose Walker as being the vortex and like what they can and cannot do. It's the whole idea of the living world and the dreaming world, and like those two kind of colliding, because her really good friend Lyda, she's like now like seeing her dead husband in her dreams, and is now like, and then gets impregnated by her dead husband in her dreams.
Right.
So she's like, well, this isn't like all bad in dreams. Like you can't do this.
Right. And then there was the question of whether or not he was going to take the baby or do something to the baby.
Yeah.
And I forget what happens with that.
That's sort of TBD. No, I think she's still. I think when we see her, she's either still pregnant or maybe she
has the baby.
He has the baby, right?
Yep.
Oh, but like, yeah, I don't think he's gonna do it. And then the other thing too is we get like little glimpses of Desire and Despair. Dream
And Desire is the character that I was like, I need to see more of that person because what a performance that was.
Yeah.
And you get the idea. So that Rose is a descendant of like their children of her and her brother are descendants of Desire.
Yeah.
Because Unity this is horrible, but was impregnated as a sleeping person by Desire And she
Right.
talks about the guy with the golden eyes, and yeah.
It's so fucked because when you first hear, and that it reminds you of like Kill Bill. Remember in Kill Bill when they were like when she was like unconscious and like the two guys would go in there and like
Right.
sleep with the people. Fuck, and he likes to fuck. And then that whole thing, because you're like, at first they kind of mention, you're like, well, when they first, whether you're reading it or whether you're watching it, and you're like, Unity Kincaid was basically in a coma for like 100 years, but she's like, but she had a kid, so you're like doing the math. You're like, that doesn't fucking sound right. Like how, like
Right.
you got to go back to that. You can't like skip over that.
Mhm.
And then you're right, like then you have Desire, who just clearly is trying to like get after Dream a little bit here too, and we'll see if that plays out. It will play
Well,
out.
it's funny because you think of like dreams and desires, and typically those two things go hand in hand, right? So those things that you wish for or hope for or the desire
Mhm.
typically show up in your dream. So you think that they would have a good relationship, and it turns out that they don't.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
pretty
a good
awesome.
point.
And I'm excited to see the rest of the Endless too. And there is someone
too.
mentioned it in the
Of course.
chat. There is some mention of like old gods when Calliope's talking about who's going to come and help her, and they mentioned the fates mentioned the fact that like some of the gods are dead.
Yeah.
Like they don't exist anymore. The only thing that exists or that keeps it in perpetuity are the Endless.
Maybe Gore the God Butcher killed him, and then you have a crossover.
Nice.
Actually, this is a DC property,
It's
so
DC, so we're not going to do that. But
if anybody's going to show, it's going to be Batman.
But the way Gaiman's American Gods works is gods die when people stop believing in them. So that's why like Odin still has like some power, and that's why because people still you say the word Wednesday. That's what Wednesday is named after Odin. So like people keep saying that name, you believe in him. So like that's a thing. So like that's how gods die, is people forget their names.
And that's the whole idea in the animated episode that you get of the cats, where they're like, cats actually ruled the world, and then enough humans started to like dream it the other way, where they took power and erased the history. At least if you want to believe it that way. And so the only way for the cats to kind of come back into power would be if all the cats kind of had the same dream.
So that little vignette reminded me of an episode I had with my college Latin professor. The guy was the head of the classics department at St. A's, this guy, David George. And he would typically like hit the pub like before our like Tuesday advanced Latin seminar class, and would produce a bottle of wine during class. It was like a 2.5-hour night class, and would just like polish off a bottle of wine in the middle of class.
Nice.
But he had this whole thing where he's like, one night, he's like, I was staring at my dog. He's like, I have a standard poodle. No judgment. He just was telling me what kind of dog he had.
I'm a dog guy, no matter what kind of dog.
Yeah. And not a poodle guy though. But he's like, I'm looking at my dog. And he's like, to my dog, I'm God. He's like, you think that like this animal believes that everything I do is magnificent, that I feed it, that I provide it shelter, that I give it life. I'm God to this animal. And he's like, could you believe like when we were cavemen that there was some animal that we saw? Our idea of God is just some huge animal or alien that like took care of us. And he was like blowing everyone's mind in class. So this reminded me of that, where like the cats are like trying to will themselves back into like the leaders of the world. Did I go a little too far on you?
Hold on! This is hold on! Her sister was a witch!
So, no, that's an interesting kind of spin on it.
Yeah,
I suppose.
But this whole episode of like the cats,
dreams,
and what a cat thing to do to like try to take power back from human beings.
Oh, 100%. Definitely cat stuff. A lot of cat stuff if you're a cat fan. But then they pivot to the Calliope episode. Now, you're the expert. I am a novice. I would consider myself a very big fan of Greek and Roman mythology. Like I love that shit. Calliope, and then she mentions her son Orpheus, which is a very famous one. Even the novices know Orpheus. Now, in this version, Calliope and Dream were together and had Orpheus.
Yes. So is the Greek version of Dream. She keeps saying his name, and I forget it off the top of my head.
I thought Apollo was Orpheus's dad. Is he not?
It's like in some versions, like
versions.
yeah. And so,
because I was wondering that when she said it, I'm like, whatever, it's a comic book. But I'm like, I'm pretty sure Calliope, like that part checks out. But I thought
she is one of the muses. She's the muse of epic poetry and like like oral history and like all that stuff. I
Was it
believe
like Homer or Ovid or one of those guys?
both technically.
Okay.
Yeah,
Pretty cool.
Calliope, epic poet. Yeah, so she's epic poetry, and there's all those other like
I like all that
she and
shit.
Ovid called her. So Ovid, who is a Roman writer, she's like even though she's the youngest. Typically, this is like a mythology thing. Even though she's the youngest, she is the muse. Like
Okay.
she's the one that's the most important.
And it's
Much
pretty
like Zeus
crazy.
is like the youngest brother. Yeah.
It's a good story. And so it's she's held captive by Erasmus Fry, and they explain how he got her, and then he gives her to Richard Maddock, who is a writer, and fucking gives you the whole spiel like, oh, I only need you for one
Right.
one book. And you're like, there's no fucking way that's gonna happen.
Mhm.
But like, what a story. And like, they don't show you everything, but it's basically like she's like, well, like I'm meant to be courted, or I'm meant to be like whatever. And they're like, like I need to go along with it essentially. And then
Right.
it's like, well, but you gave Erasmus Fry like all this motivation or whatever. And she's like, well, yeah, but he took it. And you're
He
like,
stole it. Yeah.
got it.
So
Oh,
in every epic poem, the way it starts is like in Greek and Roman tradition is like the very first thing that they do is they thank the muses. So for what I'm about to do, like so you have to offer something. You just can't take it, right?
yes.
So that's
Yeah.
and that's the going back to like laws of like Greek hospitality. Like we're going down a weird rabbit hole right now, but I understand. But if you read
This
any
is it.
Ovid, Homer, or whatever, like the very first lines of it are what they call an incantation. So you're actually thanking the muse for what you're about to do and thanking them for helping you. So that's like the big thing. So if you take it or like anything, like that's bad,
Mm-hmm.
which is what Erasmus Fry did and what Rick Maddock did, and then what a punishment he gets doled out, huh?
Shortened to Rick.
Yeah.
What a punishment. By the way, he played Rip Hunter in DC's Legends of Tomorrow. I'm like, as I was watching, I'm like, how do I know this fucking guy? But yeah, pretty amazing, right? Like he wanted a lot of ideas, so Dream gave him a lot of ideas.
That's fucking all you get then.
And
I
you
love
knew
him,
something was coming his way too, because when he was like, "Oh, Erasmus Fry," because he finds out Erasmus Fry died like a year later, and he's like, "Oh, like he's an old guy, almost just died of old age." And the lady interviewing him was like, "No, like he fucking poisoned himself." And she's
and
like,
again,
"I
it's
said,
one of those things like he says to him as he gives him Calliope, he says, if you're feeling any sense of like gratitude, have them publish a book of mine. And my guess is like that's the book he wrote prior to finding her, right?
probably
The last book he wrote by himself.
Yeah, probably.
And
But wouldn't you? Now you're a
he
good
didn't.
guy. Now, don't you think there's a chance, just from the interaction that he had, like once he got Calliope, talking about Maddock, and she's sort of first of all, he hears the explanation of like what the deal is from Fry, and then he also hears a brief thing from her. Don't you kind of think if he freed her, she still would have helped him?
Yes, and I think that's the
whole point.
That's the rub, right? You're in a bit of a desperate spot, and you have to make some sort of sacrifice. And I think that she would have helped him had he helped her. I think she would have been obligated to be like, set me free and I'll help you. And he's like, how do I know you're gonna do that? And then he's like, well, just one, because and then you get a taste of it, and but yeah, I think if he had freed her, she would have helped him out.
That was a great add-on episode, though. Like we said, like I think him getting kidnapped, and then him meeting, and then the death episode, and then him meeting his buddy every 100 years, and then obviously the whole thing with Rose Walker and the Vortex, and then the serial killer convention. Those were the things that like sort of jumped out at you.
And I love the Orpheus type. If you want the Orpheus, because it's like Morpheus.
Yeah,
Orpheus. But I love that tie-in too. And if you guys are not, if listeners don't know, if you're not familiar with those series of stories, what a tragedy that story is.
The Orpheus one is one of my favorite ones, and like I would always love the Greek myths, and most of them kind of, well, I don't know if most of them, you'd know this, but they sort of end in a way where it's an incredible story, and then it ends with like, and that's why you get spring, and you're like, wait, what the fuck?
Yeah. And that's why we have spring, or that's why,
for a little bit. And you're like, wait, what the shit? And you're like, that's why grass is green. You're like, okay,
all right, nice,
fair enough. All right, so we got to get a season 2. Hopefully, we get an announcement at some point. But there's so much more story to tell. It was so well done, and apparently, people are watching it. Like Neil Gaiman keeps tweeting out these things that he's getting about how it's like #1 or like the streaming hours or all this shit. So like I don't know what the holdup is. Netflix is weird with like what they cancel and what they kind of green light going forward.
Like
So I
they'll
don't really
green
know.
light fucking 10 shitty Adam Sandler movies, but not this. Like,
Don't lump him in with this, you son of a bitch.
well, all right, Adam Sandler's had 2 good Netflix movies. I will give him that. But
No, but like even some of the show, like Lock and Key just finished its 3rd season.
like, why? Who wants that?
That's another example of
Other
like,
than Joe Hill. But I love Joe Hill, but like
so do
other
I,
than
and
Joe
I
Hill.
love the comic book. But like that's a great example of like I read both of these comic books. They were both very good, and then one was adapted into a good show, and one was adapted into a not.
Fucking Umbrella Academy was like hot out of the gates and just
And it just took a shit.
nosedive.
Take a shit.
Yeah,
All right. Anything else on Sandman?
I love it.
I loved it too. All right.
Pick of the bomb.
Pick of the bomb. Pick of the bomb.
Pick of the bomb. All right, Ryan, would you like to kick, receive, defer, or you may choose to defend a goal?
Well, since you already spurled it, I will go. So I've been doing
sorry, go ahead.
So I've been doing a Reddit AMA, which is fun. I get to answer all of your questions and some good ones and some bad ones. Someone asked me why we are so adverse to fan interaction as I'm interacting with fans.
Had to be a joke then.
I don't think it was.
Oh. My guess is it would be a joke, but maybe not.
So
It's hard, sometimes you don't know.
Sometimes I don't know, but like this is what I'm doing right now. Yeah, and I am answering these things honestly. So if
Yeah, it's cool. So jump in there. Somebody made that a while ago, and I never saw it. And then somebody else saw it recently and mentioned it in one of our YouTube chats. So then I was like, "Hey, I'll go check it out." And then people have jumped in there, so it's pretty cool. So
yeah, so someone this is a tough answer. Someone asked me if I ever, in my teaching career, ever met a kid who was like unlimited potential, but just like couldn't fucking figure it out. And the honest answer is. It's more the opposite. It's the kids who are like aren't that talented or like their parents got a lot of money and they, I said I've actually seen the opposite more.
Yeah,
where it's like you have no reason. And again, no disrespect to the university, but some of the dumbest people I've ever met in my life have gone to Harvard. So that is not. Rich can attest to that too. That is not the gold standard for
no. The other thing I've
intellect.
heard about Harvard, and I don't know this would be true, I've never actually taken a course there, but what I've heard about it is like once you're in there,
you're in.
No, it's no harder than like in most colleges.
Right.
It's like you'd be fine. Like the hardest part is having enough money to get in. I mean, qualifying to get in.
Qualifying, yeah. Or whatever. Playing a sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. My pick, you know what I saw, which was actually pretty good. The prequel that nobody asked for, Orphan First Kill.
Come on.
Paramount Plus was very good.
Was it now?
Well, I mean,
is it an origin story?
Like 4.5 at best, but yeah,
okay.
yeah, prequel. So like Orphan, I thought was fine. It was like a whatever horror movie back in like 2009. So it was like so long ago,
right?
And then
it was one of those ones that you like sniffed out, right away. You're like,
you knew what was going on. This one, pretty good. I was like, this is just gonna be like kind of cookie cutter like horror bullshit or whatever. Which even that I would probably like, but I'm like, this one. It talked to me and it's free, so that helps. So Paramount Plus, Orphan First Kill, check it out.
I also watched the show it's on Peacock, I believe, called The Resort. It has the girl Christine Milotti, the girl from Palm Springs.
Oh, okay.
And the guy from The Good Place, and they're this couple that's been married 10 years. Marriage is kind of fucked up for but they're trying to go on this vacation together.
Sure.
And they wind up like uncovering like this mystery, which happened like 15 years before.
Is this a new movie or did it come out
it's a show?
Oh, it's a show.
Yeah. So I watched like the first 4 episodes. I might jump back. It slowed down a little bit. I haven't finished it yet.
All right.
It's decent. It's a good whodunit.
I like a whodunit.
Yeah.
You know me. I like a whodunit.
Sure do.
All right. That's good stuff. All right. Next week, we are going to do the first 3 episodes of House of the Dragon. So get aboard your dragon because we are going to be doing a lot of House of the Dragon. But fear not.
Hey, get fired up.
Let me do that again. 3, 2, 1. Get fired up because next week, House of the Dragon.
We're talking dragons.
Talking dragon. Caw-caw. That's a bird sound.
That's a bird sound. Yeah.
Fuck. What does a dragon say?
I don't know.
Got anything on that?
Trogdor, the Burninator.
He goes.
Can one person? That is an obscure, like early 2000s Flash animation poll. But can one person who make a show about dragons just name a dragon Trogdor and see how many people get it? Please.
I know one dragon who sounds just like Sean Connery. That was a movie. You ever see that?
Yes, Dragonheart.
Dragonheart.
Flight of the Conchords did a Albie the Racist Dragon. Have you ever heard that song? It's a very funny song. Albie the Racist Dragon. Yep.
So we're in on this. And fear not, though, if you're not a fan of House of the Dragon or you haven't watched House of the Dragon, we basically do half of our episode talking about things that aren't the topic du jour. So still tune in every Monday and check out wherever you get your podcasts, rate, review, subscribe. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Go to youtube.com/Dork Podcast. Monday nights we stream these. You can go back and watch them, especially if you want to see some of the should I have bought this and things like that. Email us dorkpodcast@gmail.com and Twitter and Instagram @dorkpodcast. That's it, I think. Right, you don't give a shit about anything, do you?
Say,
I said you don't give a shit about anything, do you?
not really.